Racing League Cup Series. What a finish!
It's too little, too late from behind, and Sebastian Marin, your first repeat top split winner of the qualifying series.
We knew it was just a matter of time. Hunter Sr. is victorious.
Josh Adams taking the win at Iowa.
GC Spider Motorsports takes home the 1-2-3 finish.
Today, the Simu Nation LMGT3 Masters, powered by NOX Gaming and brought to you by Wolf Sim Racing, takes a journey to the Spa circuit of Spa-Francorchamps for round 7 of its campaign. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to V-Speed's coverage of Simu Nation. My name's Justin Prince. Alongside me is Mike Noss. Our producer this evening is Zagur Bakshi, as we get set to go for tonight's action for a spa day up in Belgium. Simu Nation's LMGT3 Championship is powered by NOX Gaming. When it comes to NOX Gaming in particular, and when it comes to them, you can shop for all major sim racing brands under one roof. NOX Gaming also offers PC building services throughout Canada. Tonight also brought to you by Wolf Sim Racing. Wolf Sim Racing builds the high-end gear that makes the difference. Precision-engineered dashboards and mods designed for ultimate performance. Don't just play the game, live it. Tonight, we get ready for our penultimate race of the season, Spa. And these drivers are going to be put through the test up and down the mountainside here, Mike, as these drivers look to try and battle for positions in the championship, and in particular, up at the top, the chance is on to potentially clinch a title before we even get to France again.
Down here in the penultimate round of this championship, Xavier Chamberlain has been dominant thus far with 4 wins to his name. Max Massenet not able to compete just as of yet. He does have 1 DNS on top of it. However, even with that, it is looking like with a top 9 finish today that Xavier Chamberlain is going to seal himself up a title and also a nice gift card over to NOX Gaming, a $250 one, in fact, plus I think all the drivers are absolutely chasing for the official trophy that will be sent on over. And of course, you'll be able to see the photos in the Discord afterwards, I'm sure.
Absolutely, especially with the quest on for that hardware. It's going to be an interesting night, to say the very least. But it's time to take a look at your track guide, and brought to you by Wolf Sim Racing, driven by your championship points leader, Xavier Chamberlain. Let's break this down, Mike. Talk us through Spa.
Laps in the 120s here for Spa, the lower 120s, in fact. Managed to do some driving here myself just before the top of the broadcast. Certainly not as quick as this man on screen. The forced corner, nice and tidy, and on the way down the hill now, climbing the gears into the compression, and this takes commitment. In the Porsche, a very balanced car, but stuck it in 5th gear flat out the entire way, all the way up the hill. Climb up to 6th and ride the wave. Now check your dials, check your dashes, make sure all your temperatures and pressures are up to speed, and get ready for the next heavy braking zone into the Lecombe chicane. Onto the brakes, then after the curve, flip the chicane into 2nd gear, riding 2nd the entire way, nice and tight through, climb up to 3rd now, and go all the way out to the gravel. Do not touch it, or you'll be spinning around quicker than a quick thing in Quicksville. The next corner through Bruxelles, a very tricky corner to get the best of, down to first gear, just to tighten up the apex, short shift to second for the traction, now climbing to third through No Name. Yes, it is going to be called No Name here tonight. Now down into the long corner of Poulon, down into fourth gear. Chuck it in, ignore the sun in your eyes as you have to fly into the track afterwards, climb back up to fifth now, and into the Fangness. This is where you gain your time. The rest of the track, all about momentum. This here is all about the apexes, climbing down to second, up into third, all the way through here. Riding third up to fourth, but quickly down to second for a tight little corner, climbing back to fourth now and riding the way all the way to the longest braking zone and one of the best overtaking opportunities. Chamberlain there even clipping the gravel, managing to carry the momentum though without any issues. This is where again you get a little bit of time, you get to worry about the slipstream of the drivers ahead, behind you, and potential overtakes that are to come as we come to the bus stop chicane. Used to be a bus stop all the way up until the 2000s. Now a heavy braking zone, down to first gear, ride the curbs, be careful, especially in the portion, not to tip the weight around and spin the car. Ride it all the way out wide, back on the accelerator, and that is going to be a very clean lap here at Spa.
All brought to you by Wolf Sim Racing as we get set to go to see what happens here at Spa in particular. It's going to be an interesting one in particular for some of the opportunities to pass today. Remember this track about 7 kilometers, 4.35 miles, 19 turns here as well. They've been racing here at this facility as long as 1921, more than 100 years of racing here at Spa. There's going to be a lot of opportunities potentially to build up speed for some passes over the 75 minutes today.
There certainly is, in this track, having 19 corners, 9 to the right and 10 to the left. It's a very balanced circuit, so tire wear will not be too much of an issue, but we'll talk about that a little bit later as we get into the 75-minute race for the LMGT3s. It sounds like the drivers are out on the circuit, getting ready for what's going to be a qualifying. And we had the previous week at Coda, Justin, where qualifying was, I would go as far as saying, make or break in terms of track position if you wanted to qualify high and finish high. This week, not so much really. Spa is a track where you can get into it. You can go for the melee and get some overtakes done pretty much anywhere on the circuit. There's not many parts that are bad to make an overtake on. So we're going to be seeing a lot of battling tonight, and with that, a lot of position changes, I predict.
We'll see how qualifying is going to go in particular for these drivers. Look at Pierre-Etienne Laporte at the top of the board, in fact, for qualifying to start things off. Still have about 17, 18 minutes to work with in the session. And at the moment, Etienne right now trying to build up the speed. Keep in mind, one of the major things we'll see is this board's going to shuffle a bit. And also, just for the matter of, it's a long out lap. We're talking with the producer before this. So some of the drivers are going to take a good 5 minutes just to get the laps down.
Especially here in Le Mans Ultimate, just because you take one lap, it's not necessarily even going to be your fastest lap. These tires, they take time to get up to temperature. There are no tire blankets here in LMU. So you're just going to have to really weave around, get on the brakes, and make sure everything is up to working order before you go and set your fastest lap. Now, that's not to say they're not going to set a solid banker lap. As you can see, JP Rivel is already putting his heart into it. That Lexus bottoming out through the compression, and you can see it slamming all the way through. Now behind the McLaren, we can talk as well a little bit about these different manufacturers, and we have from time to time before, about the tire wear. These cars, of course, having different fuel usage, different tire usage. The BMW here, or excuse me, Lexus, looking awfully like a BMW, but the Lexus is a fairly balanced car, as my producer is, Sagerbakshi, is not too happy about that comparison. But the BMW as well as the Lexus, they cars that fall off quite late. They go early for the undercut, very quick out the gate, but the tire wear as it goes is going to go through the floor. Unlike the Porsche, where it's just going to slowly degrade over time, the rear end being, of course, where most of that weight is. So the front not taking too much damage, which is going to be very important here tonight.
Absolutely, you don't want to end up destroying your race car, or better yet, destroy your race with major mistakes here over the course of these runs. as you can see, just how natural some of these drivers are able to take these corners. So pivotal, especially when you're going up through Lefanges, up to Campus, up to Stabilo, all the way up by the time you reach towards where Blanchimont is, where you carry the pace up the long straightaway, up off rear, up to said part of the racetrack. Now, in your opinion, is there a car that's going to have a better strength? What manufacturer is going to be the one you would prefer here for Spa and why?
The Porsche has stuck out to me mostly for the season. I don't think it's really just this track in particular, but it's been a very balanced car all the way around. Again, that tire wear being one of the most pivotal things into it, but it also is extremely good in the fuel saving economy. Just being low on fuel saving, low on tire wear, it's all the way around a very, very good car. And we mentioned before, I know that we have our times coming in. We were expecting times in the lower 220s. Well, immediately, Xavier Chamberlain, who doesn't even have fully warm tires yet, is sitting a 2:19.2, followed up by Pierre Laporte in the 2:19.8. I was putting around the track before this started, Justin, and I was managing a 24, so not quite as competitive as the times that we see here.
Yeah, Chamberlain already to the top of the board in 2:19.2s, and that is on the opening lap. That might go even faster here. Keep in mind, some of these drivers circulate. The track temperature is 24 degrees Celsius, air temperature 23 Celsius at the moment in sim. So it is a little bit on the cooler side in the first place, which means usually a bit more grip for drivers to utilize. There's a look at your weather expectations here today. As you can see, not really expected to change all that much here, although look at that wind. That is pretty hefty, around 25 kilometers an hour.
Yeah, it might be affecting the braking there. As you can see, the car's wiggling a little bit. That might play a role for the stability in the mid-corner. Now, as we get into this, of course, this is a little bit of a treat for Spa, as it normally is absolutely bucketing down rain or foggy or very, very cold. So we're seeing quite the Spa day today, with the Eau Rouge stream running quite well in this Rouge McLaren on our screen as well. The 117 currently down with a 2:22 and the fastest lap. Competitive by Max Massenave now, as he is showing that he has the maximum pace.
Massenave indeed up at the top of the board for the time being on the opening lap, as he makes his way through to Sector 2, coming through Malmedy up to Bruxelles on Ford. And Max, for his part, remember, been very competitive. If it wasn't for the fact he missed the opening round of the season, it'd be a lot more tighter for the championship, because he's had 4 straight third-place finishes. He's been on the podium every single race, like Xavier, in terms of the championship. That one race difference is making all the difference of the points right now.
It is, but even with that, we take a look at the points from Xavier Chamberlain, and his previous 3 races are all P1 finishes. Yeah. Would be a lot closer, though. Can't argue with that. But certainly Xavier Chamberlain has put on a show this pretty much second stint of the season. Pretty much from the halfway point and onward, he showed utter dominance and hasn't looked back. So Max Massenave now coming back. He won his debut race at Monza, did Max, but hasn't really been there since. He's, again, with all P3 finishes.
It's been an interesting time for him, to say the very least. Here's a look at one of the viewpoints in the sim you could get. For the hood as well, you have that rear view cam. Many people like that virtual mirror because you don't have to go up and physically adjust, of course, like your rear-wheel car. But a toe possibly for the front straightaway. Look at that. How about for 10 up into the 218s in the Lexus? That is a couple tenths quicker than Maisonneuve's best time across the line for the second time through.
It's significantly quicker. I certainly did not have that on my bingo card here tonight. Cyril Fortin who's been, I don't want to call it as it is, but been a mid-pack driver, been an upper mid-pack driver, now showing that this is the track. When I say mid-pack, excuse me, this is the second race that they've done. My apologies. And the first race getting second. So the Coda being quite strong for them. Now Cyril Fortin showing that Spa is the way.
Yeah, remember, second step of the podium on debut last time. Already scored himself 76 points in this championship with the speed. On the point for MRT, the Montreal racing team, looking to try and keep the rivalry with U8R alight here tonight with about less than 11 minutes to go here in qualifying. No bounce back for the Porsche yet in regards to Xavier Chamberlain's second time through, and able to get improvement. As you can see, he didn't even get a valid last time through. That's why he might have to reset after this lap and get a fresh set of tires to make one more push.
Very well may. Now, the tire wear not so much of an issue in Le Mans Ultimate, especially where you don't want to go back in and get a set of cold tires. Now, with 10 minutes remaining, there is the time available. You can go back in for a fresh set, but it might just be better to stick with it. Massenev, though, as he is currently out on circuit, looking about, I'm not quite sure, actually, my Delta's not updating live here, but Massenev right behind Cyril Fortin here, so it's going to be very, very close in the markings. Now, Xavier Chamberlain, or excuse me, I think that is Xavier ahead, so those two working together to try to dethrone the current Lexus. Pierre Laporte left a little bit further behind now, with 3/10 separating him and Chamberlain, and now almost seemingly an eternity away from pole position.
I don't think that time's going to stick, though, potentially here. We've seen drivers push towards the end of the session, but 10 does not improve the time. Max Masonov does not improve his time either. In fact, really, it was by a couple of thousandths if it did. Let's send it to the sand, says Max. So he says, I'm going to just take the tires. Thank you very much, though. Look who's in second. No surprise, Christopher Larson went into the 2:18.9s. And Larson in this championship, for most of the way, had been second, but last time out put him behind the 8-ball and lost him a spot. 6th place last time out.
Yeah, Coda not treating Christopher Larson too well. It was a bad qualifying, followed up by a not-so-great race, but making a P6 out of it, I'll be honest, for Christopher Larson is quite the result. I think he can still pat himself on the back and say, you know what, that wasn't my track, that wasn't my week. This time, I'm going to change it to 2:18.9, an extremely competitive time. Massenev not able to respond just yet. Xavier Chamberlain, the favorite, not able to respond just yet. But keep in mind, Xavier Chamberlain just has to finish within the top 7 here tonight to win, or excuse me, the top 9 to finish and win in the points and take home that NOX trophy and NOX gift card. But right now, he's almost down in 9th position. He's halfway there in 5th.
Yeah, right now this is a little bit shocking from him, to say the very least, to compare to what you would expect. But there's time to bounce back. We're going to have to keep an eye on this here for the Porsche. Might have picked up an error off track. He just kicked up some dirt there on the left side tires. He just continues to go a little bit too wide, going through Sector 2 up to Sector 3. That might cost him time and potentially incident points.
Very well, may. And with a purple Sector 2, it's really unfortunate to see the time losses like that, because he just has to put it all together. If you can manage a solid Sector 1, a green Sector 1, quicker than what he's managed before, a purple Sector 2, and followed up by a green Sector 3, I think that'll be enough to at least put him in the top 3 contention. That was a terrible final corner, though. Let's see as he heads to the line. It doesn't matter. It's absolutely dominant. He slams his way up to the top. A squiggly exit through the bus stop, but my goodness, a 2:17 nearly, or 2:18.7.
Oh, Larson, look at that! 2:18.5! Right to the top of the board. My goodness, and that might be near untouchable for the Ferrari. Chamberlain raises the bar, but Larson jumps right over it.
It's a battle of titans up at the top right now. Everybody down from P6 onward is looking up with amazement, saying, how can I do that? The track is absolutely rubbered in right now. It's at its all-time quickest, and Larson goes back in for a fresh set of boots and comes back out. He'll have really one good lap, I would imagine, with about 2 minute plus 2 minute lap times. He'll get a solid flying lap after getting 2 laps to get up to temperature. There is the rival, though. That's Fortin that's coming on by right now in the Lexus, and he has a slipstream in, I think that's Pierre Laporte ahead. I can't quite tell. It's a Lamborghini. No, it's a Corvette that is ahead of him, so that could be a potential problem in a back marker. Daniel Simone, though, down in where did I just see him? 12 right now, with a 220, so that pace difference might play a massive role here tonight.
Some phenomenal qualifying efforts as one driver in the Corvette elects to really try and warm up their tires in an awkward way, but outside of that, this has been an exciting qualifying session. We still have 5 minutes to work with, though, up on the board. Right now, you can see Chevrolet and amongst those in the garage area trying to figure out anything they can do. I don't think there's going to be enough time to go much faster. Fortin might be one of the best hopes left in terms of some of your front runners on the pylon at the moment. He's put in a good amount of laps on this set of tires. Max Maisonneuve, for his measure, he's now the one back to 5th in all this.
Yeah, and this is absolutely tragic. He can't get into the 218s just yet. A 219.083. Absolutely frustrating. Sector 1, not good for Maisonneuve. Sector 2, looking all right. It's going to take an absolute miracle of a Sector 3 to manage. But I did say in that hot lap, Sector 3 is where the time is gained. Sector 1 going red, not the end of the world. It's basically just a straight line pretty much, ending right around that Bruxelles corner. Let's see how he manages through the final corner and through the bus stop to the line, and it is not going to be an improvement. A 2:18.9. It is going to be an improvement, but not enough to make his way into the top 3.
So that puts Laporte, who is not going to be here next week, mind you, down a spot inside row 3. Less than 4 minutes to go. Do you think there's going to be any more chances for there to be a shuffle? What can you do if you're some of these drivers, knowing, especially now, if you reset the tires, you got to go this lap, if not the next. And the others that didn't make that choice, well, they can't go in and make those adjustments anymore to find a little bit of speed.
Ooh, and Pierre Laporte there pushing well above the limit, as we just saw. What can you do to gain time? Well, you can cut the track, as Pierre just demonstrated. However, that's going to be an invalid lap, and that time gained is going to be for naught. Alex Bacon next to the line with a 220.1 right now. Can he manage a couple tenths into the 219s and gain a position over Maisonneuve? Maisonneuve not the most competitive so far, and Alex Bacon just missing out by about 2 tenths.
So this is going to be an interesting one for some of the drivers. Mid-pack, Rivelstone, where we won with the session. Philippe Maisonneuve again around the margin. Daniel Simon, a new driver here tonight, one of the Corvettes, up in the 13th position. Some of the other notables noticing as we have Francois Richard down the order. Legrand, who's usually been a top 10 car, down in 15th. Also, Jonathan Deserneau having a solid run here in qualifying amongst the top 10 with less than 2:30 to go. There's that yellow 33 on track in terms of the paint scheme. It's 60 Ian Sim. Again, happy to see new people come. For those who have stayed committed throughout the season, though, there is that major incentive. Remember, a part of the prizes, when it comes to drivers with 6 or more races, they essentially have the opportunity to get $45 t-shirts. A draw for 4 different t-shirts amongst those who were loyal a part of the season, Mike.
You absolutely love to see it. And of course, all these prizes provided by NOX Gaming. A massive shout out to them for providing all of it. And again, for sponsoring this series. We have 1 round left to go. That's going to be on April 21st at Circuit de la Sarthe. It's going to be an exciting one, but tonight, the championship under threat, but P2, P3, and beyond are a complete shakeup. Massenave leading in the points beyond that, currently topping second place with Christopher Larson just behind, and Larson with that absolutely abysmal coda, trying to recover from it here today. Looking good. Massenave has improved his laps, but it's just up to fourth. Cannot quite get into the conversation for the podium just yet, but this is Spa. Battling is going to happen, and I suspect it's going to be an absolute melee. Might I even say a knife fight in a phone booth up at the top, and potentially allowing one of these drivers to run away with a victory. Is it going to be Christopher Larson? Is it going to be Chamberlain, who's going to try to sneak his way on by? I think all these drivers need to work together to not hinder Chamberlain, but certainly not make it as easy as possible.
Absolutely. The funny thing is, there was a poll apparently in the Simu Nation side for YouTube, for those watching along that feed. About 2 out of the 3 who voted said, I don't think Larson's going to stay up at the top. Well, right now, that's kind of looking to be the case here, unless Max Mason or someone like Chamberlain pulls together a rapid time quick. Well, that might go away for Max. He just went about halfway, if not more, into the sand trap.
Yeah, reaching his hand into the gravel and getting bit, unfortunately. That's going to be an pretty much, I'd more imagine, an invalid lap, but certainly not going to be time gained. Xavier Chamberlain, he is not gaining time either, so the qualifying pretty much done and dusted at this point. Christopher Larson is, in fact, going to remain on pole, and I don't know who was thinking no on that, because 3.5 tenths pretty much separating the two. I don't even think Xavier Chamberlain had that in him here in this qualifying. You give him maybe another 5 laps, he could find it, but Larson just seemingly put in the work here today.
Right to the top of the board already. 3rd, 4th, and 5th, so looks secure unless Laporte's able to jump up if he chooses. Wouldn't be surprised if Chamberlain chooses to come on down. Already has track position, already well above the magic number, as long as he stays out of trouble here. Already good 28 plus drivers. Are expecting 30 potential competitors to come out to the racetrack tonight to Spa to compete here today. New fastest lap, believe it or not, Larson just went even quicker. A couple 100s quicker, a 2:18.550 to raise the bar just a little bit more. Will anybody trying to improve their time any further here? Remember, Chamberlain would be the last car here, and I wouldn't be surprised based on the fact he has the request for pit. He peels on down here and goes straight down with the cool down coming up right after.
Yeah, Christopher Larson, I think, just showing off on that last lap, to be honest. That's one of those put that in your pipe and smoke it to the rest of the field messages. Xavier Chamberlain, I think, got the message, and it might have rattled him a little bit. This is going to be a return lap, as you mentioned. I do not think it is valid. He did manage to go wide at a certain point. Fortin back in pit lane along with pretty much every other driver, so that's going to be qualifying done and dusted here. Let us know, chat, who you're supporting. I see a lot of Rival fans, Herger and Bacon, and are we going to see a fastest lap? I don't think so.
Nope. Well, yes, but it's not enough for the poll. So he did try it, but he got within about a 10th. He did try it. So that wraps up qualifying, as he does elect to try and take the pole. Here's a look at the difference. 88 1/1000ths for Larson over Chamberlain. Then for 10 on the top 3. Max Mason are followed by Steve Ward with his best qualifying effort. At the end, he was able to pip the top 5 from Laporte today. Then you have Warren Sharon in the top 7. Herger, Deserneau, and Rivel amongst your top 10. 2 Lexuses up in the front. P. Longue will start at 11th with Benoit Russo at 12. Carl Maurer will start 13th, Max Mason Irvin 14th. Steve Ward's 88 car will start 15th with Fonseca. Etienne amongst the top 17. Barrett will start down in 18th. Rond 8 will start 19th with Frank Gore-Tex in 20th. Other drivers include Saw, Rivel, Silva, along with Andre Moro, Benecki, while by some of the others that are now scrambled because we've now moved the session forward. So here's the look at the grid itself here, Mike. Ordered by row. 2 fast cars will start towards the front as we get set to go.
Pretty much, I'd say 4 fast cars starting at the front. Steve Ward in 5th position right now. He has a lot of work ahead of him, as you mentioned, with the best qualifying result that he's managed. Pierre Laporte behind in 6th with 7th to Sal Moore Sharon. The Lamborghinis looking quite good at the start, but as I kind of alluded to in qualifying, the Lamborghinis are going to be one of those cars that starts off very strong, but is going to fall off quite quick. So as we get to the end of this race, do expect the tire wear to be kicking in. I suspect everybody this week is going to be taking a fresh set of boots. Maybe 1 or 2 drivers might go for an undercut or an overcut and go for some miracle strategy to not take tires, but it's going to be on a recovery drive. It's certainly not going to be the first plan, as most drivers are going to be going for a fresh set here. Tire wear, not the highest, but you certainly want that grip to be making moves to the inside, because overtaking is very possible here, and we're going to be seeing, I suspect, quite a bit of it.
Now, as these drivers get ready to go, what are your quick notes? You mentioned some of the keys to victory right there. What do you do if you're some of these competitors, if you want to be able to keep up with, say, the Larsons and the Chevrolets, try and battle up for the race win here today?
Don't fight what you don't need to fight. Work together with the drivers around you, despite the fact that it might be frustrating. Yes, you might be slightly slower than your pace normally, but work together, slipstream each other, and try to keep up to the top. You can fight each other later. There's 75 minutes on the clock. Anything can happen in motor racing, and it normally does.
Well, that just happened. Guess what? The 99 didn't come out of the racetrack. He missed the grid. He's in the garage to start. One of 4 different cars, in fact, who start off in the garage area. So, you see Max Masonov at least having a chance to start single file. Larson and company working their way through the formation lap. This will work a few drivers up a row. So we're all set to go. We're happy to have you with us for Simu Nation LMGT3 Masters, powered by NOX Gaming, here today from Spa. Green flag is out. We're underway for 75 minutes. Larson already covers the high side. Makes his way through La Source. Gets rammed in the back end. 2 by 2 behind as they get ready to go up through El Rouge and Radion. And a spin behind.
Contact in the background. It looks like it's Francois Richard that's involved. Drivers, though, making it through without too much issue. This is where everything gets tight now, down into the compression where the mistakes can happen. Hopefully we have no spinners up at the top. The momentum in the favor for Hamel. He's going to get an easy overtake. And the momentum up at the top for Masonave as he gets fully alongside the defense, though, for Larson is on. He's going to hold the inside, and he's going to defend it quite well. In the background, Xavier Chamberlain just biding his time and waiting for a mistake up ahead or any sort of daylight to get alongside. And then behind that, Pierre Laporte making some ground up as he got that free position. Thankfully for Cyril, I will say, thankfully for us, not quite in the points running. So we don't see any of our points runners knocked out just yet. Karl Mauer having an absolute mare of a time here at the start. Is he down to 20th here? No, yes, he is down to 20th.
Already losing a lot of ground with some of those spins going on to the heart of the field. It's been an interesting start, to say the very least, for the field, but front runners look to march their way forward and away. And of course, getting into a good rhythm is so important here at Spa. Yes, it's like that for majority of the tracks, but especially here, because these packs can split up pretty quickly. Yes, even with the draft, as there's Bergen Redectinic hitting a back end of one of the McLarens in the braking zone.
And Gore-Tex up ahead, getting a little bit of a nudge from a gigantic horse in the background. That Mustang looking very intimidating when you are in that little tiny McLaren. 9 positions already for Redactogrim, so he is carving his way through this field like a Thanksgiving turkey. Up ahead, Stefan Delafonte, not so lucky. 1 position gained, he'll take it, but he wants to find more. Currently held up by Masonave, who's had not the greatest start. One of the fan favorites. A lot of love being spread in the chat for Masonave, but he's not quite able to get the pace down just yet. In fact, he's being a bit of a thorn in the side right now for Delafonte.
Yeah, kind of into a mix of a heavy battle here with him at the moment. You see him just trying to play the lines with Shane right behind, trying to find a way to charge, already up a spot. See some of your big movers already. Right now, that Ford in the 220, we see him at the bonk earlier, up 5. Here's Rivel, for example, up into the top 9, up to 7. You can see how much some of these cars really fly their way up the long straight as they work their way up the hillside, up through Kemmel and the Kemmel straight. This is going to be your prime opportunity for passes today, where you have so much slipstream in theory come into play. The tough part's going to be everybody's going to have that slipstream in the draft packs like this.
The slipstream effect is accumulative, though, so the car behind has a little more slipstream than the car that is ahead, and that effect amplifies as you go down the order, so the car very, very far back will have a much more powerful slipstream. Now, you have to be careful with that, as of course you come into the braking zone much hotter than you would normally be used to. You also have less air in the corners, which can lead to issues. These LMGT3s, while they may not be the highest downforced monsters on the planet, they certainly like to have air pushing them down and compressing them to the circuit. Laporte, he's having a bit of issue right now doing exactly that. The pace not quite in his favor, and you can see behind him, or excuse me, that's Herger that is holding up right now in the McLaren. Laporte stuck though behind.
Really seeing that with some of these drivers just having a difficult time to be able to move their way ahead at the very least, as Laporte having a little bit of a bobble there with Ward continuing to provide pressure behind in the yellow machine. Take a look from the 630-62. See that yellow McLaren, a bit of a different look than what we normally would see when it comes to Ward. Usually have seen him, I believe, in the blue cars. So electing to change things up, I'm going to say almost like a Lotus type of paint scheme with the color scheme. But this evening, the new paint scheme seems to have brought new powers of ability when it comes to Ward, because for his sake, bit of an up and down campaign to say the very least with what we've seen. 7 of the points, he's usually been maybe 7th. He has a chance potentially for top 5 or more speed with the way it's looking like right now.
Got to keep all of the marbles together. Do not crack under the pressure. He's got some very talented drivers around him, and he just has to hold on. JP Rivel is going to be giving him quite the time. Now, we look a little further back to 17th position as we have Guilherme, as well as Evalazio Silva having a little bit of a bout currently. The BMW being a thorn in the side for the Ferrari. That's pushing the Ferrari back into Oliver Legrand's grips. And also another BMW in the mix of PE Longuet. So who is going to pull the trigger first here? That's going to be the question we're asking. It looks like the Porsche is going to be the one to do so. Down to the inside, a little too far back though, forcing a mistake, and there's a chicane in the chicane. Hello, that's going to be, I think, Frank Gore-Tex. No, who is that? Is that Dan Poor? Maxinave. Oh goodness, we'll have to pull up a replay of exactly what happened there.
Yeah, a little bit of a slide there for Philippe in that circumstance, as Longuet does take the inside line, tries to battle it out, making their way up to No Name. Known these days with the name of Speaker's Corner. Many people will fight you over that name, by the way, because I know a lot of people like to say No Name. Then you end up seeing a track map, and for example, one will say Speaker's Corner, one will say another name. It's changed a lot of names for a corner without a name to it.
Let him fight. Let him fight. And speaking of fighting, I have a bit of a replay of exactly what happened earlier on, and it was a bit of a, well, a dicey one. We'll see how this plays out. This is going to be Xavier Chamberlain, if I'm not mistaken, in the Porsche. At least I think that's who this is, as I took a little look beforehand. The 22 Porsche that's going to be, so no, but a little bit of a contact, and that's going to result in a spin, unfortunately for Massinave. So a contact early on. It was not Chamberlain, but that was actually Desormeaux who that was.
Yeah, and you see how fast Larson here is trying to pace himself around. See, just continuing to fly on the racetrack. Longuet cutting to the corner, he went off, and that slowdowns in the middle of the racetrack. Longuet slams down to the brakes, and now lets on drivers through. So, That was a little bit of a scare, and that actually set up the opportunity for Gore-Tex. Near contact again.
Very respectful from Karl Maurer to leave room there. He was hyper aware that he had a McLaren-sized gap open, and there just so happened to be a McLaren on the inside. The BMW behind of Pedro Sa also got through P. Longue, so a big mistake for the BMW driver, costing him multiple positions, and that's going to be a big loss as well, as that's Marc-Andre Hamel that's found a massive crash at the top of the hill. Now, though, moves potentially on in the background for Pedro Sa, but no, not on this occasion.
Yeah, we're seeing just how aggressive some of the people in the mid to backpack will get at this point, especially with how darty things can get. You kind of need to make your response as quick as you possibly can here. And we're seeing a lot of these drivers really push the envelope. This is where Philippe Maisonneuve has fallen all the way down to 23rd, by the way. Usually a top 10, top 12 car. Might be able to migrate his way up there, but it's going to require near perfectness to get there. You see him attacking Beneke, no place to go this time in the Mercedes AMG.
No, not at all, and a massive issue for the Ford right now, and Maisonneuve is going to have to just claw his way on through at a certain point. By the way, there is a replay ready of that incident that we saw. Pierre, though, before we get to there, is under pressure, and currently with Steve Ward to the inside. Steve, who we thought was going to be on the defensive this race, has gone on the offensive and is ended in disaster contact with Pierre Laporte, and it ends in absolute sparks. Pierre out, Ward out.
Oh my goodness, and the sparks are flying on the Lamborghini as a result of the contact. Max Maisonneuve running away with second. Herger has to close up another 4 seconds just to get up to Chamberlain as the U8R machines, at least a couple of them, survive, but others get absolutely decimated by an incident that breaks the pack in half.
And I have another angle if we want to take a look at it. It's a very unfortunate angle, but to be honest, it looks almost like a little bit of netcode. We take a look immediately, it's going to happen quick, and you can see Pierre cuts over. It doesn't look like there's much contact, but the results are absolutely devastating. And Hamel also now out with the rest of these drivers. Goodness me.
Yeah, that was absolutely vicious in terms of the incident. That's going to not only have some ramifications for the championship in the case of where the points are going to stack up when it comes to Laporte, but also it's going to hurt Ward, who is having one of his better starts to the season, or to a race this season. And that's the tough thing when you're missing a race and planning to miss a race like the finale. You kind of need to push the tempo, and that is what can potentially happen where you have a sense of things pop up like that.
You do. You just hate to see it so early on. Thankfully, I guess, for the drivers that early on, it's always the worst when you're 70 minutes into a race and get taken out and can't finish, but JF Nole is out, along with now a few other drivers. So Laporte, I would imagine, is going to join him, but he's in pit lane. We'll see if he comes back out on track and finishes. It'd be nice to see him finish. We do also have a replay of Marc-Andre Hamel and what led his demise down the order. This one more of a human mistake than any. One I think that we've all made in the past. And here is Hamel down in the compression. Coming up the hill, a little too much curb usage, and simply round we go in the Aston Martin. Almost rejoins the circuit, sends the Porsche to a little bit of a scare, but Hamel, thankfully, minimal damage, no tires being popped off, and down to 33rd. Actually, I think he has DNF, so Marc-Andre Hamel is out as well.
So the incidents are starting to pile up, the trouble's starting to pop up as we take a look at Silva. In all this wildness in his circumstance, he's been able to claw his way up to the 11th position. He's been one of the few to be able to keep it clean, up 11 with the attrition. some would say. It's up 8 for those who made the start in the race specifically. That BMW been able to really pick its spots, to say the very least. It is difficult to gain that many spots in less than 15 minutes. And for Silva, it's been one of those types of years where we've seen whenever Silva's popped up, he's done well, but usually has been battling amongst those in the mid pack. Today, really able to sparkle and gain spots. His best finish is 22nd after all.
And, you know, with this race, we've seen pretty much just him picking them off. He hasn't really gone for any spectacular moves or dive bombs. He's just been patient and letting the race come to him. Unlike what we're seeing right here in front of us, Pedro Saw trying to force an issue on Dan Poulin ahead and trying every which way to do so. Would be driving a lot faster, but unfortunately there is a Porsche-sized roadblock ahead of him, as it seems, and having to navigate this is going to be quite the difficult one. You know, we talk about this track being an easy overtake, but sometimes it just takes a little bit of calm driving and a little bit of just, again, letting that race come to you to make that overtake happen. It's not worth going for something so early that's going to cost you to crash out.
That sort of chaos, continuing to see where things shuffle as a result of how wild things are going to get here. We see some of the drivers like Legrande trying to push the tempo to get back 11th. See that little tiny bit of arc, and that little bit of setup is so important in terms of the run through Blanchimont in particular, because some drivers will have to burp the throttle to make sure they don't get the corner cut. Others will push the tempo pretty hard there in terms of the track limits. Look at the track limit usage for the Porsche.
Yeah, full send baseball, and he is dropping it onto the outfield. Legrand, though, does not care. 70% virtual energy left. We do expect that pit strategy to be around the 35-minute mark. That's sort of the predicted time frame, as it is most of the time, and it's looking like that's going to be accurate to the energy. Now, of course, what is virtual energy for any of us that are new to Le Mans Ultimate or new to the... Wait, hold that thought. What is that? Is that Steve Ward in the background that I just saw spinning out of control and now losing massive amount of times? I think it is. Oh, goodness. We're going to have to pull up a replay of that now.
Things spiraling again for Ward after the contact. It started off so promising for a driver that's at top 10 speed, but this car is fading pretty quickly. Only a few minutes into the race. By the way, as we take a look at how things shuffle, Silva having a hard time keeping the corner off right now. A little bit of a dive. That's not normally a passing section. Grant trying to push the tempo in a little bit of a tight spot there. That MRT is getting very impatient.
Yeah, I was just praising his patience, and now he's going for the impatient move. So Evilazio Silva proving me wrong swiftly. Let's tone it back a little bit here. Legrand immediately, though, responds back to seeing the mistake of Evilazio and gets the position back for free. So really no harm, no foul, just a bunch of time lost and senseless move being made. Now, still 1 hour left in the race. Gravel being kicked up ahead, not going to be an issue. I do have that replay as well from Steve Ward. And it's, again, just another one of those very, very human mistakes that pretty much all of us have made in the McLaren, especially as we go down the hill and down into the compression. It's going to get the best of us once we hit that curb on the outside. In fact, we didn't even make it there. It snapped well before we got to that point. And a long, long skid mark, and thankfully rejoins the circuit safely, but those tires are going to be absolutely cooked.
Yeah, and that's going to be another one where they're struggling for the rest of the time here in this situation. But, by the way, for things going on for the race lead, the gap has grown for Larson to over 2 seconds. Chamberlain, well, hold on. That Irvol, for a second, was falling apart. I think Larson disappeared for a moment. That's why that sparked up there. A little bit of an internet blip, but outside of that, 93 is just doing what they need to do to score points at this circumstance. Mason Irv on his recovery, Philippe, I should say, now looking to pass Gore-Tex for 16th. nearly got loose up the hillside.
Really easy to take track limits too wide here and go for a little aggressive move. In fact, he did take track limits. I think he's still committing. Up ahead, though, it's going to be Karl Maurer that's under threat from the Lamborghini of Sharon, and that is going to be signed, sealed, and delivered, really leaving Karl Maurer's jaw on the floor. No response able to be found here. In the background, there was no move made just yet. Massenev still trying to work his way through Gore-Tex and down into Bruxelles. This is where you sort of have to go into the waiting zone. The next opportunity opening up after the Fagnes and down into the bus stop will be the best move potentially, or just waiting for the next lap. We'll see.
Yeah, it's going to take a little bit of thought process. Simon still running pretty well here in the midst of all this, by the way. His first start of the series. It's one of a couple making his debuts here tonight. Has ran simulation races before, but also is a race winner in EGT Canada competition. Won there back in December, in fact, during its Le Mans Challenge for Season 12. Has also raced in FTT competitions, which is essentially Full Throttle Tuesdays that was ran last year by the organization of Simu Nation. So he's familiar with the drivers. He's raced likely against a lot of these competitors in a major competitive sense. He can win if he finds track position, and he's getting checked up with a newcomer in the Lexus.
Near contact. In fact, I think there was a little bit of contact there, and that's going to allow the Porsche to sneak on through of Legrand. To the outside, though, not going to be too trivial, as now onto the brakes. Are we going to see a lunge back? We are, in fact, more just Ollie Legrand leaving more room than he needed to. He left the door wide open. Call him the bellman here tonight. Side by side down the hill, something has to give. You cannot go too wide into Rouge Radion. And unfortunately for Simon, he realizes that and has to back out.
Yes, indeed. See how this has opened up Legrand to pull himself up for a chance to pass by that 6 machine. Merle, again, on debut, has no previous appearances in events in regards to his history on the platform, but if I can have some fun here today. Right now, Meme Poke working to try and control the memes, to say the very least, here today, up on the racetrack, as the mechanical engineer looks to try and hold on firmly. The difference last time by the pace, though, amongst these cars, give or take, was about a couple tenths of a second on best lap. It was near 7 tenths of the pickup for the Porsche.
Very quick through Pouan as well and into Fagnes. He's going to commit to the outside. This is a move that you don't see too often. He's going to go argy-bargy at the apex and get to the inside for the second part of the Fagnes. Doesn't quite work out, though. The momentum, though, is going to be in the favor of the Porsche again. Look in the background, though. This is going to be Simone once more. Is he going to join the conversation here? I think Legrand has to pull the trigger now into the bus stop, but is he going to be close enough? He's pretty much pulled the trigger and counted all of his chickens before they hatch. The slipstream's powerful, but I don't know if it's going to be that powerful. On they go through Blanchimont and down to the braking zone. It does look like it's going to be that powerful. Legrand to the outside, as the inside's going to be covered off by Courchain. Switcheroo potentially? No, not on this occasion, but the pressure builds, and Oliver Legrand sneaks on through, forcing a mistake out of his opponent.
Another spin, and it's still not turned around there. Borshinsky trying to pull around, able to do so. Will lose a lot of spots, though. So the debut for the Lexus having a bit of rough hiccups now coming up, to say the very least. Will cycle in front of Dan Pouan at least to give him some space.
Yeah, and now immediately the pressure back on. This is not what you want to have after a spin. Your head's all confuzzled. Everything is going to be, well, a little higher than it needs to be, especially the blood pressure. And now you immediately have another Porsche putting the pressure right back on Dan Pouan. Maybe not quite as quick as Oliver Legrand, but certainly a driver you do not want to shake a stick at. He's going to climb his way up to 6th gear on the straight. That Lexus just a little too quick for him right now.
Yep, you see that with the setup for Poulin. Mind you, Poulin about mid to backpack much of the way is amongst the drivers, though, that likes to have himself a bit of fun, it seems, at the very least. 17th the point standings. He can have top 10 speed. Ward, for his sake, he's trying to settle back in. Nearly rammed the back of Maurer, though.
Really applying the pressure at this point. McLaren on McLaren is the most frustrating battle that you can have. It's a very aggressive car, doesn't like following too much. And you can see when you're on equal pace with the car ahead, it's near impossible to make a move. Maurer doing a great job of defending. Steve Ward requesting. He's doing a little fiddling on his pit stop meter, and you have to be very careful when you're doing so in the S's. Don't go and collect your opponent. That's a bad look, especially live on TV. Down to second gear, though, and round it around. This is going to be the opportunity. Get on the hammer early and carry the momentum through the right-hander. A little bit of a slip for him, unfortunately, and I think that might be that, and he's going to have to settle in for another lap.
Yeah, that's going to be easier said than done. You can see him already making the pit adjustments here, already having to think about stops eventually. It's going to be a few minutes, maybe 15 to 20, until I think we see a big wave here in this one, but this is a track that, with the size, you have to think about it. Oh, he's coming in. He is actually going to peel on in.
I'm a little shocked at this.
I think with all the incidents, he might have an opportunity to get out of traffic here. Does he fix anything on the car is the question.
Probably. The only issue that I'm really seeing here is, as we get to the end of this race, Steve Ward is not going to be able to defend from a fly. He is going to be under massive pressure and will be sliding around like a dog on a freshly finished hardwood floor. So with 1 hour, well, nearly an hour, 50 minutes left, it's a stretch. The tires, you expect to use your first stint to run an hour, go and pit around that 35-minute to 30-minute mark and use fresh tires at the end. A little bit of the opposite strategy this time, but a little later than you would expect. Or earlier.
Yes. Well, yes, absolutely. As Felipe Maisonneuve nearly ramps the back end of Gore-Tex here. By the way, Ford's back to about nearly where it's been, and it took him, what was that, 15 minutes to recover 10 spots already? Kind of says a lot in terms of how well he is on the average pace to be where he's at in the field usually. It would take another 9 seconds to get up to Maurer, though, which will probably take it to around, based on the pace, probably the 35-minute mark to have a chance here with the way things are going for this Ford.
Yeah, a lot of work ahead. And to be honest, for Gore-Tex, it might just be time to allow Maisonneuve through and follow him and not worry about getting into a collision, because that's what I'm seeing right here. Use the fellow car as a bit of pace and then go and hunt down Karl Maurer and work an overtake that way. This is currently, in my opinion, like I say, a losing strategy. Let's see here, though. As we get to the bus stop, I think the writing might be on the walls, regardless if Frank Gore-Tex wants this overtake to happen or not. The McLaren is under threat, and the Mustang was close, but seemingly has disappeared at the left-hander of Blanchimont, and that's going to be what I expected to happen from the Mustang, but instead it's going to be Dan Poulin making a dive bomb there onto Guilherme.
Yep, been able to make the swing around in that circumstance as you continue to follow on and find out where some of these drivers think. What's the plan? What's the kind of situation they want to sort themselves out with? And you have to think with Spa, this is the type of environment we've always seen in multiple different sims here after all. Has been a fan favorite because of the elevation and because, well, the atmosphere. You mentioned you expect to be rainy and cloudy usually. But there's also, as some commentators would use to describe back in the day, the smell of Belgian waffles up in the air. You have a good food environment. You've got a long climb in a lot of these areas to make your way past the racetrack.
especially the 24-hour events. You get the smell of the barbecues late at night, the show of the lights, and all of the very fun motorsport-themed events that go on around that time, the 24 hours. Personally, is, in my opinion, one of the coolest events, and certainly on the bucket list of pretty much the top of any race that I want to go to. Hold that thought, though, as we have another little battle developing. This is the move that has been developing, and finally Massenev has gotten by Gore-Tex. It's been a long time coming. Now Gore-Tex just has to latch onto that back bumper and hold it. Don't go for any silly moves. Don't waste your time making anything that doesn't need to be there. Just follow the Mustang ahead.
One of the things noticed by a couple of those watching along, noticing the broadcast feeds, and of course from the Simu Nation side, is drivers starting to slip the tires a little bit here. Do you think these cars are really starting to feel that tire wear burn with the rears, especially in some of these corners? That was one of the things noticed by those following along the Simu Nation side today.
Oh yeah, some of the cars, the BMWs are absolutely going to be feeling it. The McLarens are going to be feeling it. The Ferraris and Lamborghinis are going to start to feel it, and the other cars are going to be feeling it later. That's a great little move from Ravel there to get by Herger, or I think hold on for right now. I think Herger is on the offensive and trying to go around the outside now. It's a long way to the top, but he's got the momentum and he's got a tremendous amount of speed before the braking zone, so this is going to be a great opportunity. In fact, it is. Gets the move done. Ravel hands it back by. I sense this is not the end of this battle.
Probably not so, as right now Ravel really trying to figure out a way to maybe get the spot back here. Answer is not yet in the purple machine, and we've seen a couple appearances when it comes to him this season. 10th on debut last time out. Big pickup from the top 10 to say the very least for Jean-Philippe. So he tries to sort out where to go. As you can tell, though, he seems to be getting those speed differences at the wrong spots possible.
Faster on the wrong parts of the track. A frustrating experience. Now, the Lexus should be quite quick down the front straight, so do keep an eye out for moves as well as on the back straight here. Very, very close. The Lexus, we saw Ravel, I think, make a move on the previous lap into the bus stop, so don't discount that again. I think that's where Ravel feels that they're fastest. The Lexus typically is a freight train in a straight line. The McLaren, not too shabby itself. It is quite rapid with a couple turbochargers slapped onto the big old 4.8 liter V8 underneath the middle of the car compared to the front of the Lexus. Front engine versus mid engine. Who's going to prevail? As of right now, looks like Ravel is not going to have an opportunity, and it's going to be Herger to defend on this lap.
Still nothing doing. Herger, in his circumstances, though, it's been pretty solid in his starts, you could argue, as well. Herger usually has been amongst those top 5, top 10 in terms of pace. That's why we've seen him do pretty well in the standings. Maurer, for his sake, is actually clawing his way up to a 15th-place points run. Look at this again. Ravel's got an opportunity up the hillside. No, wrong spot to do it.
Not just yet, though. Had to back out. The momentum should be in the favor here of the McLaren, but the Lexus is still somewhat close. A little too far back for my likings. Defensive goes Herger, though. Covering a little bit of the inside. A wasted effort, and he does just hug back to the racing line. Now, despite the fact that Ravel is going for moves and opportunities that maybe aren't quite there, he's still quicker. Immediately back on the back bumper, and that is going to really weigh in the mind of Herger. No matter what I do, I can't shake him. I can't let him go. It's a frustrating experience for Patrick. Now, Ravel just has to wait. Still plenty of time. Let the race come to him. As you mentioned before, the driver up ahead, Max Massenev, he is 7 seconds nearly in the front now, 6 seconds and counting. So we'll see. Ravel, if he can get by soon, I think a podium is still certainly on the cards.
Good opportunity, potentially, especially if anyone makes a mistake. Now, the tough thing is, you can see the interval difference already for the podium positions. It's going to require a massive botching for, I think, some of the errors to close up at this point around the racetrack. But already coming up to 42 minutes to go for those tuning in. Simulation racing action here today at Spa. Penultimate round of the season. 22 cars are running. Silva, amongst those who peeled down with issues a few laps ago, is the most recent in the garage area. For 10, who should potentially have been arguably up at the front with the race leaders, didn't even make the start today after qualifying. And that really shuffled the complexion of today. So, all this as well, this track continues to see some solid progression. Keep an eye on conditions. The temperature on the surface actually has gone up because the amount of rubber and some of the sun buildup, but not too much here. In regards to how it's overlaid so far, there's the weather conditions specifically. So it is getting impacted a little bit. It's in fact, after originally supposed to be staying partly cloudy most of the time, it's turned into overcast by the end.
That'll definitely be affecting the grip as we get into it. The wind, as you'd mentioned before, also at about 25 kilometers per hour. Going to be affecting the balance of the car through the mid-corner. So as this track evolves, the cars are also going to get more and more shaky. Also, lower fuel going to be causing that as well. The pit stop window has unofficially opened in my mind. This is sort of when I'm going to start to see drivers come in. And potentially, I think within the next 5 minutes, we're going to start to see our leader come in. The undercut here is going to be more powerful than the overcut, strictly because we're not really going for track position here at Spa. You're just sort of trying to get to the end as quickly as possible, and that being with a tire change at a optimum time. Not trying to go for anything too special here. This is going to be, I think, a pretty cut and dry couple laps of a pit window. But expect it, like I say, in the next 5 minutes or so.
Yep, indeed. And you can see Mason Irv again nearly to the rear end. Cost him the bad corner exit. Nearly spun around coming out of Malmedy. That aggressive cut came in so much. You can see some of the drivers already are starting to make those pit adjustments as we were expecting here at this point of the race to make sure they're good on the calculations. And of course, those calculations also pivotal. These drivers, for mostly everybody, are good. There is one exception. I am not sure how they've done this. Zach Wolf has about 15% less virtual energy than everybody else in the field. Zach Wolf, for whatever reason, is burning through all that VE quick.
Yeah, great observation. Now, I wonder if that is due to incorrect settings, if he maybe has the car set to burn more virtual energy than fuel, and if he plans on changing that later, or if it is a misjudgment. Max Mastinev coming into pit lane. Now this, I'll be honest, is earlier than I expected by a couple laps, but it doesn't surprise me necessarily. Again, this is the undercut strategy, quite strong. Let's see what happens here, though. Mastinev is Philippe Mastinev here. The other Mastinev is going to be getting by with ease onto Frank Gore-Tex, and I suspect Gore-Tex comes in this lap. This looks like a half-hearted effort to just get out of the way, and no, interestingly enough, he doesn't, so stays out another lap and allows these two to battle more. 27% left on the virtual energy, the lowest being 23 for Xavier Chamberlain, 8% for Zach Wolf, as you had mentioned, so will be needing to come in the next few laps, which is actually perfect in terms of strategy.
So we played here for the Aston Martin. So off and away goes Max. As you can see with the pit lane difference, we are using that pit lane that shoots you up out of the source compared to the full lane that some will use here on the platform. Right now, his difference down to 15th, right behind Fonseca and right in front of Beneke, as we'll see a huge wave coming pretty soon. The battle with Rivel & Company now up for third, and oh my goodness, one of the Fords in the background absolutely ate it. Try to let them go on the outside, hit the marbles, nearly slammed the wall down.
We'll see. It's Redactagrim potentially. We'll see if we can get a replay of that one here very shortly. But the 220 is the suspect for that. At the moment, though, JP Revel is going to be still on the hunt right now. Herger in third position as it stands. Now, this is all, of course, subject to change. Xavier Chamberlain requesting a pit stop. Would be surprised to see him come in as well, but anything is possible in motor racing. And here at Spa, as I said, it's not the most important whether you get it on this lap or the next lap, and it is this one for Xavier Chamberlain. Christopher Larson stays out. Herger and Ravel, they both stay out as well, and presumably will be coming in probably on the next lap.
Yep. Right now, Chamberlain is now into the pit lane. Massenev trying to make the dive on Maurer. Looks like Maurer at least going to hug the inside. Not going to give it up easily, though. Up through Blanchimont. A pass before they even get there. The Ford completes the move. Nicely done by Philippe. He's passed by Gore-Tex and Maurer now and has a bit of clean air to work with. In fact, Gore-Tex dives on by as Maurer lets him by a bunch of cars.
Yeah, almost like his heart wasn't in that one, to be honest. It allows Gore-Tex through with ease, and he's backing out by 4/10 immediately. Now, he seems like he wants the position back onto Frank Gore-Tex, but it's just not really an attempt at all. Looked to the inside, compromised his apex, and got a terrible run out of the corner. That's not how you make any moves in my books. Gore-Tex is going to thank his lucky stars and say, all right, well, I guess I'm battling with Massenev now. Looking up ahead, 1 second into the future. Can he catch him? Currently, Legrand and Delafonte. They are the two at each other's throats, and the 263 going to be working its way by, I would imagine, pretty soon. This looks very aggressive from Oliver.
Kind of does. He's been aggressive all night, though, you could argue. Is that something in terms of a mindset you just enter with? Or better yet, how do you try and plan that aggression to make sure you don't absolutely bend the car when you're making moves like he's been trying to do with some of the heavy charging he's done?
I think a lot of it just comes down to the confidence. Oliver Legrand knows his abilities in this car, and he knows what he can do, and he knows he can do more than Delafontaine, and that's what he's trying to show us right now. It really comes down to just, like I say, hitting your marks and making sure you're hitting your braking zones. If you can manage that here at Spa, you're going to manage some really good lap times, and on top of that, you're going to manage to gain some positions. This is a track that breeds mistakes. You can see the grass is never far away. The wall is never really far away either. Now, it's maybe a more forgiving track than some, but it still can claim its victims. And when you're Oliver Legrand hunting for an opportunity here, what do you do? I would imagine a pit stop from one of these two. Not on this occasion, though. Oliver Legrand's going to try to do it legit now with 1 lap behind. Let's see what he can manage here on this occasion.
You can see the headlights are turned on. Oh, there's a lot of give and take there. Delafontaine just said, you know what, I recognize your speed. I know you've been aggressive. Just take it. Let him have it. The Ferrari drops back a spot. Some reasonable good give and take there. There is Maurer. I think something's wrong with the car because he's fallen off like a rock. Wonder if he's got steering damage or is trying to save gas. I don't know what, but Maurer's just fallen off.
Yeah, I would agree with you, but he didn't come into the pit lane. I mean, if he has damage and he's down at 16% virtual energy, there's only 33 minutes left. There's no real reason to not pit right now. So why wouldn't he? I suspect Karl Maurer, maybe just a mental lapse here in this race tonight, and maybe got his tires a little bit out of the window that he would like, and just hasn't been able to recover. But I have to agree with you, Justin. This is a very surprising result from Karl, as he started the race up in, well, the much better position, as I see. What was it? No, he's gained 6 positions. What are we talking about? Karl Maurer's up 6 positions.
Yeah, he's still up, but he's gone backwards after being in a good spot. By the way, stop and go for Zach Wolf is going to make things a little bit difficult for him because he's going to have to come down and then stop and go again, or vice versa, after his fuel snafus already. So, still, well, as we play things out, Larson going to have a massive advantage over Max Masonerv. If you look at your pylon, Xavier Chamberlain, just notice with that, look at the difference. That is a massive difference on the pylon there, because that with the net difference was 13 seconds more of fuel. for the Ferrari than the Porsche here. That is going to be your net lead if you notice on your pylon.
Yeah, very good spot, and Xavier Chamberlain is going to take full advantage of that. How he's managed to do that is, well, I'm not quite sure. I guess that's just the Porsche able to be that much more fuel efficient than the Ferrari, but even still, 13 liters is quite a number. Christopher Larson maybe just missing a number, something along those lines, but he's going to be kicking himself, whatever it is.
Yeah, that is a massive changeup with that fuel in pit delta. That is absolutely significant here that we're going to have to find out. Does Larson have the chance to push ahead with his race car to get back up there? Needs to close up 6 seconds to get back up to the Porsche. The 93, your net leader as things go with under 32 minutes to go with the cycle. And go ahead.
I was going to say, not only your net leader here tonight, but your championship leader for Xavier Chamberlain, and looking to not just take home the NOX Gaming gift card and trophy, but to walk away with it and say, I absolutely earned this. Currently sitting on 4 victories in a row. He's looking to make this a 5th here tonight. Potentially a double hat trick by the end of the season.
Yeah, this is absolutely impressive for the 93 as he tries to dive underneath some of the traffic, and Simon, who's ready to come down pretty soon for pit service. And what you can say is, for Xavier, this is right up to what you expect here. He's one of the best drivers when it comes to the region that you have in this type of a circuit. After all, he's been competitive here. He's been competitive in other series. He's competitive all across the platform. It's so difficult to stop the speed like he has here in this type of a campaign. He's one of the top drivers in all of Quebec for a reason.
Giving us a little bit of a display of his skill, maybe not quite what you would expect to this pace. Dan Simone allowing him on by. He's essentially a blue flag, but not really, as of course Chamberlain has pit and Simone has not. It looks like, though, Simone is going to come in on this lap, has requested it. We'll see if he follows through. I suspect Herger coming in soon, as his virtual energy is going to be running out within the next couple laps. Same with JP Ravel. And we're going to start to see the ranks back to where they should be. Xavier Chamberlain, as you mentioned, being the highest place one driver with a pit stop. And Christopher Larson somehow nearly 6 seconds behind.
Yeah, that is going to be an interesting phenomenon for the rest of the way, how things are going to play out here. The gap is down under 5, by the way, for the net lead, as we should see a big wave of stops in the next moments or so. Right now, the virtual energy, for those wanting to keep track, is under 5% for much of the field. For Herger, it's under 4%. So should get him to about 20 laps, maybe 21 is the most you can go. Chamberlain, you see that small difference, only has a difference of 1.4, 1.5%, maybe 1.1 actually, on the virtual energy. It depends on the scoring loops where it updates for that circumstance. So you'll see a lot of these drivers really try and max things out here with this. A lot more fuel, I've noticed, you put in the car compared to most other tracks at the very least, you can argue here, Mike. We're seeing that in particular with what we're seeing in terms of the virtual energy store.
Yeah, Zach Wolf was down on 0% virtual energy on this lap and riding purely on fuel. He has made it, thankfully, back to the pit stall, and so is going to get back out on track without any flags or anything. In fact, yeah, so I'm getting word in my ear that might actually be why there was that drive-through penalty aside. So you cannot run out of virtual energy without getting a little bit of a slap on the wrist. Herger gonna have to come in this lap. Ravel, yes, also gonna have to come in this lap. Technically, Alex Bacon and Ducermo maybe can make one more, but what is the point? There's nothing to gain at this stage. Just come in, take your medicine, and get back out with a fresh set of boots and 30 minutes on the clock to get them back into temperature. And it looks like Herger is gonna do exactly that. Xavier Chamberlain more than likely will be taking the lead on this lap.
See him peel on down. And most of the field will do so indeed this time through. Desarnaud, Legrand, everybody who is able to stretch it, going to tap the shortest pit stop deltas. Defontaine nearly knocks the wall down, trying to enter the pit lane out of the bus stop. Now, we'll find out where the interval goes. Should see Chamberlain zip on by a lot of these cars, though. This will not be for your race lead, likely. It will not indeed be based on the interval. New fastest lap, Larson, 2:19.3. That's quicker than most of the field had in qualifying on the push. The gap is under 4 seconds. Rivel, amongst those off and away, might have an opportunity here to still be amongst your top 5 coming to the pit road. Yes, indeed, will be right behind Herger. You see how some of the others will shuffle about. Max Masoner still has to pass him, in fact, because Rivel has jumped a fair bit with a 25-second pit stop.
Yeah, that is devastating. And with that fastest lap from Larson, it makes me start to scratch my head. Are we going to see a battle for first position? Xavier Chamberlain, is he going to come under threat? And that gap is coming down quite quickly as we see it, but then back up. So it's going to toy around. The lap time difference does need to be quite significant. We can see the previous lap was with a nearly over a second, well, a second point, 1.3, in fact, over Christopher Larson, or over Xavier Chamberlain. If he can keep that pace difference up, which I don't suspect he can, we're going to see a battle very, very quickly. Now, Herger in the background, 13 seconds off, has a long ways to go. Massenave has a whole world of his own ahead of him with Dan Poulin. Who is going to be on the bottom step of the podium? That's sort of the question I'm asking myself at this stage.
And that's the huge question for a lot of these cars, especially now with the chance to push. Poulin going to be coming in this time by. Has to let some space open. Max Masoner trying to force the issue. Will get the issue settled and gets himself on by for the pass. But at this point, if you want a chance to contend for the top spots, you kind of have to go. That's why Larson in particular is flying. Look at the interval. Remember a minute ago I said it was 3.8? It's going down a couple tenths a corner. I'm almost wondering, do you think there were tires taken there for Chamberlain compared to Larson?
Yeah, almost.
Well,
it was a 52-second stop.
But you're talking about a massive pace difference with a heavier car. Is what would be the case for that for Larson?
I don't know what to think. I understand what you're saying. The pace difference shouldn't be this much, and what the only thing that I can think maybe is, like you said, either yes, the tires weren't changed, but that would be a massive blunder if that was the case from Xavier Chamberlain, and he would know that as well. But that is a great question. The pit service time difference is 15 seconds, which I don't think is a set of tires.
Yeah, I'm not
Chat
sure.
might have a little more insight.
I know there's a
Let us
pull
know,
up
chat.
to see will Larson catch him. I think that pull is going to swing yes at the rate we're swinging. But Longue trying to make his way through. Here's a concept just thought about with our producer. Do you risk taking only 2 tires at Spa?
Maybe. I mean, no is the short answer. I wouldn't risk it. I'd just take all 4, but that is the most plausible explanation. The reason I wouldn't take 2 tires, well, the reason I would take 2 tires in a Porsche is because it's such a rear-heavy car. The front end doesn't really get that much abuse, all things considered, so maybe a set of rears could be plausible. Beyond that, I'm not too sure. That I wouldn't see taking a set of lefts or rights. This track is very balanced in terms of its cornering, but tires are 12 seconds. Is that all 4s?
Yeah.
Or is that just 2s?
That would be no. That would be for 2 in theory. So
Okay.
either way, in this situation, it's very interesting, and we'll have to keep an eye on it in the next little bit here as we go about and watch things out. 23 minutes ago here from Spa for those tuning in. Right now, things are late. 4 tires is 12 seconds to give the correction, so that would definitely explain the speed differential in that circumstance. That's different from some other sims where it can go up to 25 seconds for a set of tires. Keep in mind in some of the other sims. Now Rivel, in his case though, he's feeling the pressure. Max Masonerv is all over the rear end, and Max nearly spun it. Blinky lights, I'm not sure why he blinked at the Lexus for it. He was the one who got loose.
Yeah, flashy, the headlights. It's always in the frustration. Now, you love to see it no matter what. Some people don't. I like to see it. Car to the inside there. That's a Ford Mustang. What was that doing there? Looks like it got out of the way just fine. A back marker, I presume. That must be Redactogrim. Ahead now is Herger. Ravel and Massenet currently battling for the bottom step of the podium. But back to that quick conversation, 1.5 seconds is the gap, and if 12 seconds is the difference, then that would explain the tire difference, and that would explain the time difference. It doesn't explain the strategy decision in my head. I think Xavier Chamberlain, I would have thought no-brainer, would take tires, but here we are.
Here we are indeed, absolutely. Again, shout out to, this is going to be an interesting name, Dale Rodman Jr. III, which is a streamer on LMU for the insights. As we get set to find out where some of the battles settle in, Steve Ward trying to at least gain up another spot here. He's gotten himself in front of Ward at this point of the run. He's looking to shape things up pretty quickly. The battle of the McLarens, interesting enough, a majority of the McLarens running around the mid pack outside of Herger and Bacon, who are the only two in the top 10.
We'll see if he can make that move here. It's been a very, I was going to say, up and down day for Steve Ward. Not much up other than the qualifying. He can say, I did great in qualifying. Not so much so far in the race. 10 positions down, and now battling with Frank Gore-Tex for the scraps and doldrums. I think both of these drivers is sort of a race of what could have been. Yeah, Gore-Tex is up 4 positions, but we've seen in the past he has quite a lot of pace. Top 10 potential for sure. Tonight, maybe not so much. He has a long ways to go. 3 seconds till Karl Mauer, 10 seconds till Dan Poulin from there. So it's looking like this is going to be the maximum positions gained here tonight for Gore-Tex. Now, Steve Ward, that's another question. Ravel, under pressure, it looks like. No, he's trying to make moves. Herger is the one that's under pressure. Massenet, though, on the back of Ravel. Looks like this battle is certainly on.
Oh no! Ravel gets turned right across the nose and slams the car through the tire barrier. The Lexus had speed all night and gets absolutely decimated. Just like that, the 202 will lose a ton of ground off and away, but you have to think that car's gotten hurt.
Yeah, and you have to think that that was a little bit of a unnecessary move, unfortunately, at least in terms of getting alongside the space. You've heard the saying all the time, you have to leave the space. The space was not needed to be left there. We'll leave the stewards, though, to make that decision. That was certainly a dicey one, and you absolutely hate to see it regardless of what happened. Now, though, the results are the same. 3rd position belongs to Herger, and Ravel back down to 6th.
Yeah, and you have to think that car's going to have a little bit of a slowdown after that point, but we're still keeping an eye on what you see on screen too. As you would think, Larson's on the charge, and right now, the speed's kind of starting to equalize out a bit. He's now going to be in the wake, though, of your leader, and he's got 18.5 minutes to think about this. Remember Silverstone at the start of the season when these two put on an absolute brawl for the win over in the UK? It's got those similar flavors to that, albeit this time with different strategies to come in. Remember, Larson ran that race running out of virtual energy or running close to the end of it, and with steering damage from initial contact during the race. Nothing has come into that circumstance today.
No, and I hope it's as epic as that, but I suspect with Christopher Larson's significant tire advantage, it's going to be a pretty trivial overtake and more than likely happening in a hurry. Let's see as we go down the first corner now. This is going to be the best setup opportunity that we have. I don't think he's close enough just yet, so Larson might need another lap to get by, but Xavier Chamberlain is more than likely going to be shaking at his boots at this point and saying, how can I put up a defense? Is it even worth putting up a defense? Because as you said, 17.5 minutes. I don't want to say that's a futile effort with old tires, but Xavier Chamberlain is going to have to put on one of the best drives, if not the best drive he's ever put up.
Going to require a lot of precision here, to say the least. Running in the 220s now. He was running a second quicker on the initial charge once he put on the fresh boots. Now the tires have equalized out. It's going to be a bit of a challenge. Chamberlain, for his measure, does have scrapes on the front end. Max Masonov ready to get his podium back. Herger has lost a lot of ground net, but has been in the hunt for a top 5 all day. Well, that was pretty swift. Made the move fast up through the comb, and now it's the Aston Martin up in the top 3 again.
Now, I wouldn't discount Herger from holding on to this. I still think he has the pace to keep up with Massenev, but I think Massenev is the overall favorite between the two if I had to pick one. Immediately, though, Herger loses an entire second, so struggling, it seems, immediately. And is going to get left in the dust. Alex Bacon, 9 seconds to the background. It's looking like it's going to become quite a lonely race here for Patrick Herger quite quickly.
Yeah, and Herger at this point really going to have to think, can he make sure to hold on? Give credit to Bacon, by the way. He gained a net spot with the pit strategy, at least a couple, in fact. He's going to be in the top 5, likely. But Fonseca has survived so far tonight. He's right now gotten up to John Benecke, who has gained a fair amount of spots over this race. He's got up 10, in fact, the 165 has. Arguably, for John, one of his better races as well for the championship. Been able to pick up spot after spot here in this field. 17th his previous best, looking to improve it by a couple spots. Marginally getting better as the championship's gone on.
I think that's a very fair shout. In fact, I'd even go as far as saying one of the most improved is John Benecke. He always has a good amount of positions gained. Now, he might end up losing it. He might end up having some sort of issue at some point in time, but he'll always end up gaining positions and moving in a positive direction. I haven't once seen him get caught up in a collision. I haven't seen him once get any sort of unnecessary defense or unnecessary aggression. As you can see here, John Benecke, he knows his pace. He says, okay, I'm going to defend you as long as I can. Fonseca, though, is going to, okay, and we are battling for the lead. Justin, here we go.
Here we go, side by side. Lurtzen up the inside. Lurtzen clears on by. Now looks to run away. Chamberlain tries to settle on behind, but it's now the Ferrari with a chance to stretch away with less than 15 minutes to go.
And unfortunately, that happened just about as quick as I expected it to. Larson made the move, and we're going to see Chamberlain gaining, so don't quite count him out just yet. We will pull up a replay of that overtake. Do not worry. We'll get that here in a moment, but that certainly is looking like Christopher Larson is going to take this one and sail away.
Yeah. Can you argue that was a little aggressive on the pass, or is it the thought of, you gotta go, you've got the fresher tires in terms of circumstance?
We'll have to see here once we get that replay up. It's certainly, if it was aggressive, it's just unnecessary. As we know, again, the writing was on the walls for certain. So Xavier Chamberlain either making a mistake or just a trivial overtake. We'll find out here in a moment.
Absolutely, and you'll see Ken Chamberlain try and go toe-to-toe. This is the closest he's been since the first laps, mind you, for the race lead. Already see him a little bit deeper on the brakes of the Porsche. Now nearly to the rear end, but the problem is those rear tires just will not connect anymore, and that's growing the gap again.
Making a move to the inside, then back to the racing line. It's a half-hearted attempt. I think Xavier Chamberlain knows that it's going to take an absolute miracle. I do have that replay as well, and the move from Larson. So I'll let you be the judge of, was it overly aggressive? Because I have my opinion on this one, but let's see what a fresh pair of eyes has. So here's Christopher Larson down to the inside, making the move, gets fully along. Great little battle at the apex, near touching the entire time, and a little bit of contact at the end, and Larson gets on through.
Yep. That aggression sees Larson back at the point in the final moments of this one. Larson working his way ahead as the circumstances go here. But Simon looking pretty solid here. Will battle out with Philippe Maisonneuve. Guess what? The 177 is right back where he started before things spiraled. So the recovery drive is complete.
Unfortunately so for Maisonneuve. He has given it his all, and it has resulted in the exact same spot that he started with so far. 10 seconds, though, to De La Fonte. It's doable, but it's going to be a stretch. Now, back to that little battle from Larson and Chamberlain. That was a heck of a move from Larson. I got to give credit where credit's due. Fair, I would at least call it, as I see it. Rubbing his racing, you can call that little last bit of contact net code, but that was two drivers giving it their all and having nothing in between them briefly. That's exactly what racing is in my mind.
Yeah, and it takes a lot of decision making to make some proper overtakes in the circumstances like that, and that's why the pros are able to make those swift decisions and catch some of the drivers off guard to make sure they get it done, but also do it the clean way without major physical contact. After all, this is not bumper cars. You'll look at Simone really trying to dig into the corners at the very least, but we're coming up to 11 minutes to play with. So at this point, now it's the thought process for some of the drivers to finish things out when it comes to the fight for the race situation. So you can tell Simone really trying to keep up the speed, though. Look at the recovery back on the outside.
More. Oh, my goodness, is Maisonneuve there. Nearly heads into the back. I'm going to be honest, that was more of a mistake from Maisonneuve than it was a move from from Simone. This is going to continue. I mean, I'm pretty confident that Maisonneuve has more pace than Simone, but the consistency seems to be in the Corvette's favor. Now, the Corvette is one of those cars, again, that the tires I expect to fall off in the next 5 minutes. 10 minutes left, though. Battling's on. I don't want to say that the podium is sealed, but I do think the podium is pretty much sealed at this point. But these two, as I'm getting some more from my producer, look at the lap times here between the two of them. 0.004 seconds separating their fastest lap.
Yeah, that is really intriguing in terms of the pace difference, you say the very least. But kind of showcases just how even kilter some of the battles like this have gotten. Simone really starting to separate back out now to build up a buffer at the very least. See, the last time by, Simone pulled away by 0.3 of a second. That's partly with the pass. And right now, Maisonneuve is, even with the draft, losing a lot of ground. He's losing about a couple 1,000ths per millisecond, essentially.
And also we have a request from chat for a little bit of a replay between Ravel and Maisonneuve. So you know what, I tell you what, we can get that replay up here in a little bit. And in the meantime, of course, you can see the battling live on your screen. Maisonneuve down, though, as it stands, unfortunately.
So with that being said here, now at this point, what stood out the most to you with a race like this here today? As it's been pretty active in terms of the mid-pack, but it's getting to the calm period, which is surprising to say with less than 9 minutes to go.
Yeah, and I think the biggest standout for me is one that in reality is not the biggest issue, I think. But Xavier Chamberlain not taking tires is a massive head scratcher for me. Just one that I can't really wrap my head around, because he would have won this race almost without question, I think. I mean, Christopher Larson obviously was giving him quite the hard time, but Xavier Chamberlain had the pace. He just didn't take tires at the pit stop and now is suffering as a result.
Yeah, at this point, you can see just how much Fonseca is really trying to, in his circumstance, build the buffer away from Beneke to close things out. Last time through, had a green first sector at the very least. So, as we go about with less than 8 minutes to go, at the very least, some of the Fords having to come down pit road. The attrition rate been pretty low this race, even with the hit. Rivel, well, I just changed that. Rivel did have to pull down for the DNF, so that will score him down at 26. Bergen Redactic just pulled on down and DNF'd also. So a couple drivers have taken huge beatings here.
Yeah, and I almost have that replay of Ravel. I'm currently in the time window of when it happened, but cannot pinpoint the exact moment, as the replay software often goes here. But once we do have that replay up, I assure you, chat, that we will get it. But also, it's a great question for chat. What are some of the highlight moments that have stuck out to you? What are some of the drivers that have maybe made a bit more of a show than you expected to here tonight? Steve Ward is the one, in my opinion, that kind of is the biggest driver for surprises for the worst side of things, unfortunately. Again, having such a good qualifying and just not able to gain anything as the race went on.
Yeah. Still, it's down 7 for Ward is the tough part in the circumstance. But when you have a race like he had with the incident he had early on that put him for the top 5 back here, at this point, you just take what you get, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, you have to. Now, I do have that replay between Ravel and Massenerve, and to be honest, on second look, I made a harsh judgment on it, but it's hard to tell if my opinion stands. I'll certainly, again, we'll throw it up on screen real quick and allow you to be the judge at home, and the stewards certainly will be taking a look at it. But you could argue that not enough space was left. Let's see here. The move is on. We have Massenerve going fully alongside, no questioning that. That is front tire to rear tire. The space should be belonged to, and that's Alexis moving over at the corner. Again, the judgment, I'll allow you to kind of take a look at it. Justin, what are your thoughts when you look at that one for a second time?
Not sure what to really say other than I don't know what to really say on that, because normally you don't see that part of the racetrack. So a tough situation popping up in that circumstance destroys the Lexus in that situation. So at this point, you can tell what's going to be interesting for the rest of these drivers as they get sorted out towards the very end, trying to avoid any more bits of contact here. Poulin, for his credit, a lot of fans saying in a really good spot here. Really just surviving well with the 11 gained. Going to be one of his better races all season.
That certainly is. And now with Steve Ward contend with it, we'll see if he maybe can dethrone one position. I think Ward has the pace. But regardless, Dan Poulin has put in a stellar drive tonight in the Porsche. And the Porsche looking to be the standout car of the season, really, I will say, in terms of balance of performance. I know we had this question a few times throughout the season. That seems to be the car of choice. Now, there's the move from Steve Ward onto Dan Poulin. It wasn't the most exciting one. I don't think Dan really had any issues allowing that move to happen. Handed it over and said, all right, you go, boy. I'll follow you for the rest of this race. As Frank Cortex is not rapidly approaching, but certainly could rapidly approach within the next 4 minutes. 2 seconds is the gap, and with that time remaining, it is a long track with a lot of corners and a lot of mistakes that can happen. So Dan Poulin finding a helping hand here to finish this race with, I'm sure, is a welcome prospect.
Slowly, with less than 4 minutes to go. Just gotta smile and hope to be able to steady out. Make sure to keep the positions. Gore-Tex a little bit far back to catch, but is closing pretty decently, though, at the very least, to this. There is a small risk for Poulin to lose an hour spot here at the very end of this race. So what do you do if you're Poulin to make sure you conserve that position, because the gap has gone down 2/10 already?
You just stay on Steve Ward just as much as you possibly can. follow Steve's tire tracks to the best of your ability, hit his braking points, do everything that he is doing, and hope that it's enough to stay ahead of Frank Gore-Tex, because that's really, at this point, all you can do. The slipstream will help. Stay in the slipstream, and don't give it to Frank, because that's pretty much game over if Frank Gore-Tex gets in the slipstream of Dan Poulin. We have a little report from chat as well in terms of don't know whose fault it is. Pretty much everybody indecisive on it. I have to agree. As much as I'm leaning towards it was the fault of the Lexus, I could be swayed either way. I'm like probably 60-40 on that one, but again, it's I could see it going either way. So the stewards will have a heck of a time going over that one, I'm sure. But certainly good to get a second angle on it and get a little bit more of eyes. It's a controversial one, and you hate to see it no matter what.
Indeed it is at this point right now. But we're coming up to that stretch over the course of this one where some of the drivers really need to fly. Fonseca's been keeping Beneke close here. Look at that fog settling on in. Mentioned it was going to be overcast. It's become absolutely foggy out here. And at the right time, no major impact for the visualizations here.
Classic Spa Day is what I would say. Of course, this being the track named of Spa. Yes, indeed, spas, they get their term from spa. The term coming from salus per aqua, meaning health from water, as the Romans colonized this place back in the 900 BC? I can't remember, 9 BC? It's been a while, let's just say that, since the Romans were here. But when they were, this was the origin of spas, and they came here to heal their wounds.
Yeah. So Larson just about a few moments away from celebrating victory here. We're under a minute to go on the clock after all here for this one. Right now, Ken note Bacon's had a few off tracks as of late, but has kept himself pretty stable. Outside of that, it's been a dominant day in the office for car number 2. He's now pulled away by more than 3 seconds to end. Just has to keep it on the surface for another 35 seconds plus.
Yeah, it should be easily able to do that. He has dominated not just this race, but many races. And finally, well, maybe he hasn't dominated, but oh no! Is that Steve Ward, a race of what could have been, and somehow Frank Gore-Tex is the one through. Oh no, and now he's made a mare of the corner, and it's going to be Dan Poulin to gain the position. It's a battle of mistakes here on the final lap, Justin. What the heck is happening for P11?
Oh, that's a little bit of chaos to say the least, but the clock is reaching zeros for Larson. Christopher Larson ready to secure things, but we know there's a championship coronation potentially in line for Chamberlain as well. Right now, Larson on the way to another victory this season in this campaign. For Christopher Larson, it's his first in a few weeks. This is his first in 4, make it 5 races, 2 in the past 5 total. But for Chamberlain, just his second place run all season. Christopher Larson makes his way to the bus stop chicane and comes through. He'll get the chance to get a celebration on. It's Larson who gets the win, but it's Xavier Chamberlain who will come to the final corners, will unofficially clinch the championship.
Brilliant drive from Xavier Chamberlain and Christopher Larson. Max Massanev will be the next across the line for 3rd position, and quite frankly, a dominant second half of this race, gaining 3rd position and never looking back. Patrick Herger with a 4th place, certainly one that he'll be patting himself on the back for, and Alex Bacon in 5th, another one of the drivers out here that can really take a bow. Ollie Legrand finishing in 6th behind, with Desormeaux in 7th. Delafonte will be in 8th. Simone, the new driver on the grid, finishing in the top 10 for the first time as well, and Massanev rounding us out for the top 10th position.
So impressive drives here today in this situation. So at this point, it's going to be an interesting drive for the last race of the season over in France with how big that track's going to be with the draft. But today, Spa sure definitely had a day in of itself. Poulin looking to just secure 11th spot after the craziness. Ward already checking on some adjustments. Gore-Tex looking for one more chance. Will we try and dive it underneath on the up and under? Not able to with the curb. Poulin able to have one of his best runs of the season at 11th.
Brilliantly done, and again, a race that pretty much anyone that crossed the checkered flag here tonight can pat themselves on the back and say that this was a solid one. What a way to lead us on to the final race of the championship here for Simu Nation as we get ready to head over to Le Mans, the namesake of this sim, for the next round. That's going to be in 2 weeks' time, of course.
What a race, to say the very least, here today here on V-Speed. Simu Nation LMGT3 Masters, powered by NOX Gaming Competition. It's the last cars cross. Christopher Larson, 3.3 seconds up over Chamberlain. Then Max Masoner, Patrick Herger, and Alex Bacon, the top 5 of the Grand in the top 6. With Desorno, Delavan 10, along with Shimon and Philippe Masoner amongst your top 10.
On to 11th, Dan Poulin just sneaking in with Gore-Tex behind in 12th. Steve Ward coming home in 13th with Carl Mauer in P14. We have Gerby Fonseca in P15 with John Beneke coming home in 16th. David Pittman in the Corvette in 17th with Zach Wolf in 18th. Andre Moreau behind 2 laps as well with 19th, and the start of our DNFs belonging here to Redactogrim in 20th.
21st goes to Rivel with Longate down in 22nd. Saw in 23rd with Merchants down in 24th. Then some of the other drivers also off the racetrack, including Marin Chiron, Silva, Etienne, Amel, Laporte having a crash in Gillette, and so many drivers having some problems that popped up here today. But what a race here today. What a drive, what an effort, what a day for these competitors. Let's take the opportunity to talk with Christopher Larson. Christopher, you had the fight towards the end there. How would you describe that fight for the win between the tire strats, between you and your now championship elect?
I mean, it went about as well as I planned. I knew I had the straight line speed on him, and was hopeful to get it done the first time, and it worked out. He doesn't back down, so I knew he wasn't going to make it easy. But man, I'm glad he didn't put tires on, and I'm glad it worked out, how I was hoping.
So overall, though, you've had consistency much of the season. With the situation, Laporte going to at least secure a 3rd spot with him not going to be here next race.
Man.
Yes. So you're still in a tight battle, though, with Max Masoner, going to go back and forth potentially for 2nd. Where do you see that championship pressure building for that point spot?
Oh man, I thought it was going to go down to the wire today because he got a great jump. I saw Chamberlain, made it easy on him on lap 1. We'll say that, team strat playing out there. And I thought he was going to be, hounding me the whole race. And I guess tires fell off or something, so it made it a little easier here. Le Mans will be a different story. We know the grunt of the Aston, and we know that Max will not give up. So I would expect, like we've seen in multiple races this season, it will go down to the last lap, final few corners, and let's hope we all make it to the line.
So with that being said, how do you feel about the French countryside, also known as Le Mans?
Man, I mean, to end the season off with Spa and then Le Mans is probably the dream, having been in the Ferrari. I went through a lot of tough races this season, a lot of races where I couldn't push. Coming into Spa and Le Mans, knowing that I can push this car and it'll do what I want. If it's a tight points battle, we might as well, finish on a high note.
So with that being said, any shout you'd like to give here today?
I mean, shout out to Max and Xavier, to have a 3-way battle there at the beginning, and then a fight in the middle of the race, with the whole strategy and, him staying close the entire time, you can't really ask for a better show and a better race. A 75-minute race at Spa gets boring when you're all alone. So shout out to them for just never making it easy.
Congratulations on the victory here today. It's your second.
I appreciate it.
Christopher Larson gets the job done here today. Takes the win here in Simu Nation competition. I'd like to thank him for taking the time to speak with us during post-race coverage here on V-Speed. Your final thoughts tonight, Mike, as tonight we had a Spa day for sure, but we also got a championship elect.
Yeah, we do. Xavier Chamberlain, and more than likely is going to be the one that took home the championship. Of course, it's presumable or preliminary until everything is final, but it does seem that Xavier Chamberlain is going to be the one to take home the victory. Now, the thing that got me a little excited is sort of what we just heard from Mr. Christopher Larson, saying that he hopes that they both make it to the line. So I suspect as we get ready to head over to Le Mans, we're in for an absolute war between Massenave and Larson, and unfortunately Laporte not able to partake in that race, is not going to be in that fight, but this is going to be an exciting one. We're going to have a three-way battle between the top three, with Xavier Chamberlain obviously taking the championship, but it's going to be an absolute barnstormer in a couple weeks.
Absolutely. But on that note, it's just about time to say goodbye for tonight's coverage here on Simu Nation and on V-Speed for tonight's coverage of LMGT3 Masters, powered by NOX Gaming, and once again sponsored by our partners over at Wolf Sim Racing. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in for tonight's coverage of the action from Circuit of Spa-Francorchamps. For our producer, Sagur Bakshi, for my co-announcer, Mike Noss, I'm Justin Prince saying so long. Enjoy the rest of your evening. We hope you've enjoyed today's coverage of the racing action here from Spa. We'll see you next time when we go racing in 2 weeks' time from France for a championship clincher. Good night from Belgium.